Anybody would want to listen to me talk about APOC, it's really boring. But there is certain things you need to know when you're a candidate. Filing your reports and taking care of your financial stuff is probably one of the most important things that you could possibly do. It's also something that your opponent can use against you if you screw up, and they will do it every single time. So that's why it's really important. There's fines that you can get. There's all kinds of stuff. It's super important, and I think that's why they wanted me to talk about it. So in order to start on APOC, you have to go to My Alaska, and you have to start a My Alaska account. It's Alaska.gov. And before I go through all this stuff, they will walk you through. There's a section on there that will walk you through every single thing that you need to know, and how to file your reports, where to file your reports. The stuff I'm going to tell you about is the important stuff that will help you to file your reports. So once you go to My Alaska and you set up your account, then you're going to go into the Public Offices Commission section. And the first thing you have to do is file your candidate registration and your declaration of being a candidate. That's the very first thing that you do when you start doing all this. The second most important thing is you have to file a official financial disclosure. That's when you say you're going to be a candidate, you have to file that. And those are really intrusive and annoying. You have to tell them everything, and it's public knowledge. So you need to know that ahead of time, because a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to do that. Well, you can't run unless you do it. You have to tell them everything. So you have to sign a privacy agreement to use the system. Some people get mad about that, but again, you have to do it or you can't be in the system. You can't use the system. So when you get in there, the first thing they're going to have you do is the financial disclosure statement. And really, really important that you start your whole career in APOC. It's really important that you start it correctly, because if you don't, it's going to cause you a ton of problems. If you do it correctly, then APOC is really nice. I've never had a problem with APOC, not one single time. They have bent over backwards to help me, and I have asked them crazy, stupid questions. And they're always prompt when they answer me. They're always super helpful, and they just help you with the whole thing. So the system, once you're in it and you're in it correctly, the system actually helps you also, because the system tells you, it shows you what your assigned reports are. It tells you when they're due. Before you have a report due, they'll send you emails. They don't ever call, but they send you like a ton of emails, like, you need to get this in, and this is what the fine is if you don't get it in. Like our fine with the party, if we are a day late, is $500 a day. So it's not something to be screwed around with. And if you do anything like that, your opponent will use it against you. Well, they can't even get an APOC report in. They can't even do this right, or they screwed up this. So how do you expect them to lead you, you know? So you have to do the correct. So that's what I mean it's really important when you start the whole thing. You have to do the right years. You have to report the right dates, because there's sections of dates that you have to start everything in. You have to tell them why you're filing, if you're filing as a state and municipal, all these things that they list that you have to go through. It's just the initial stuff, and then it's always in your file is always set up that way. The type of reports, all that stuff. So why it's so important is because besides the fact that the system will tell you, if you're not in there correctly, then the system won't be able to tell you have a report due, and this is what's going to happen if you don't file the report. So, you know, a lot of times you're busy. If you're a candidate and you're doing anything, you're slammed. You're so busy, you can't. I mean, a lot of times I'm like, oh crap, I got a report due, and I don't know until they send me an email, because it's not on the top of my list of stuff to do. So it's really important to get your system set up correctly. Would
you emphasize how important it is? A lot of people think they're not going to be collecting money, so they don't need to file.
You cannot run for office if you're not going to accept contributions. It's fact. You're going to look like you're not serious, and no one's going to take you seriously. And every time APOC reports are due when you're a candidate and you're running for office, it's a big damn deal. It's a big deal to the media because they go and they look and they want to know what your contributions are, and they report it to everybody. They're like, oh, well, they're not even, he's raised $20. He's not even a viable candidate, and they will not pay attention to you after that. If you actually raise money and you have contributions and you show that you're a serious candidate, then they'll pay attention to you, especially if they don't expect you to do that. It's a sick thing, but it's the #1 thing that the media pays attention to here. It's really, really important. So if you're not good at asking for money, you know, you need to try to learn how to do it. And you really have to, are we being taped? It's like a horror mindset. You have to, like, every single person you talk to, regardless of why you're talking to them. I just went to the bathroom and asked a girl if she was here, if she was in the hotel. If I was running for office, I'd start talking to her and I'd ask her for money in the bathroom. And I'm not joking. And you have to switch your mindset to every single person that you talk to, that you need to ask them for money. And because it is a very, very big deal. And APOC is the way that they all see that. And so that makes you a viable candidate, not just by what you say, but you can be articulate and kicking butt out in the public eye, but if you don't raise any money, then no one's going to take you seriously. So that's another reason why, because you're going to be getting lots of contributions, you should be. And so you have to keep up on that. Is that good? Okay. So I wanted to stress that on your financial disclosure, don't try to not tell them stuff, because your opponent, if you're in a serious race, will go over that with a fine-tooth comb, and you literally have to tell them everything. Well, not everything, but anything over $1,000 is considered something that you have to tell them about. On most of the sections, it's over $1,000. So like, I own a landscaping company. I had to list every single one of my clients. And I had to reach out to them and say, I have to put you on this form, and it's going to be public knowledge. People are going to be able to see this. So there's a possibility that, you know, you might get one of your friends going, she's a libertarian, or, you know, or great, she's a libertarian, but everyone's going to know all the stuff that's on there. So you have to list all your income. Go ahead.
So is it only money wise? Like, what if there are donations that aren't like monetary stuff? It's more like physical.
Yeah, those are called in-kind donations, and you have to list all those also.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and
what if you have a startup business, but it's got a loss every year so far because it's a startup. It's not.
If it's not over the $1,000, then you don't have to list it, unless, which I'll get down here, unless it's a conflict of interest because it's with a government entity or something like that, then you have to. So, yeah, so your income, anything over $1,000, if you have renters, if you get dividends, all that information has to be listed. And again, it's all public knowledge. Gifts, anything more than $250, that's an in-kind donation. And I listed, I didn't care if it was under $250. I wrote my stuff down. I claimed it. Go ahead.
So these numbers, I think, per year per campaign, like 1,000. You said like a renter. So
That year
was paying $9.95 a month.
Well, you get over $1,000. So yeah, it's not a month. It's the year. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there still limits as to how much you can get in contributions from each person?
Yeah, it depends on what your race is, how much you're allowed to,
Okay.
what your contribution
Do you know the
limits are.
for the government race?
Carrie, what's the limit for a governor?
Well, I know it just ran.
No,
It's the same,
It's
it's
the
still
same.
$500 per individual
It
or
didn't change.
sole proprietorship, and not take any money from a company.
From a company. Yeah.
So it's still the
You have
same.
to be sole proprietor.
During that year, it's every
But-
year.
but-
$500.
But
also, there's a tighter limit on cash contributions.
Right, you
Yeah.
cannot take more than
$100.
Yeah.
$100,
So that,
period.
that didn't change it.
No,
No,
this is.
nothing's
this is-
changed.
I don't know when it changed, because I don't think it was that bad before,
Uh-huh.
but last time I ran, I had to give back $10.
Yeah.
Because they gave me 50 and then they gave me 60
60.
and, $20
Yeah.
benefits, right? So, and then I talked to APOC and they said, no, it's $100
Period.
total. It's not per day.
Yeah.
It's total. So,
Yeah, and there's tons of those rules, and they're adamant about it, and you can get fined if you don't. So you need to know what you're doing. Business interest, you have anybody with over $1,000, any kind of property you have, doesn't matter if it's over $1,000 or under $1,000, you have to list the property. Any trusts, retirement accounts, all your loans, your debts that are over $1,000, if you got a car loan, you got to list it. Government contracts that you have, natural resource leases, close economic associations, financial relationships is with anybody that's in office now that you have a relationship with, you have to disclose that. Unless you're running for a municipal office, and then you don't, because that's tiny enough where they don't make you do that. But if you have any kind of relationship with a lobbyist, or your spouse does, and a lot of these are if your spouse does too. So, because they'll connect you to it.
See, how do you define relationship?
A financial relationship. Yeah, I'm friends with lobbyists, but I don't have a financial relationship with them, or I'm friends with tons of legislators, but I don't have any kind of financial tie to them at all. So, and then at the end of your financial thing, you have to certify that everything that you said, that you disclosed everything to them. And they really do go over that with a fine tooth comb. And like I said, so will your opponent. Excuse me. So once you get that done, the financial disclosures, then you're going to go into your APOC reporting section. And like I said, there is tutorials in there that show you every single thing that how to do everything. And I don't want to forget this because I didn't write it down, but don't wait until the last day to file your report. And let me see. Don't wait until the last day to do your report. There's lots of times with campaign strategy that you wait till the last day to file it, but make sure that the thing is done, because sometimes the APOC system goes down. Sometimes it's overwhelmed. Sometimes it's just crazy. So you got to have, don't wait until the last minute, because if for some reason you don't have information, or you go to put it in and you don't have it, you're going to get in trouble for that if you don't turn it in. But campaign strategy wise, because the media reporting what you make is such a big deal, a lot of people wait and you don't want your opponent to know what you're doing most of the time anyway. So you do wait until the last day. I always waited until the very last minute to file my report, but it was done days before, in case when I tried to, I got to the point where I gotta go, okay, I just got to do this, and that's all. So don't wait till the last minute, because you can call one of us if you need help, or you can call APOC, but you can't do that at midnight when it's due.
Okay. Cean. One trick though that I learned, I just wanted to share it, and talk about their website. In the general election, filling out the report was all scrunched up or something, and you couldn't fill it out. It was all, so I filled it out on the primary form, got it in on time, and then when they called me and said you didn't file your report, and I told them what had happened, and then they said you're okay, because at least even if we can move it to another form, but if you got it in any way, shape, or form, we can always fix it. So it's just even if it's not done right,
Yeah.
you just getting it in. Yeah.
And you're allowed to amend any of your reports. You can go back months later and amend a report at any time. So if you have to, you need to get those in on time. Even if it's not complete or whatever, and you need to amend it like the next day or 2 days after or whatever, you've got to get the reports in on time.
Do you have to do that before or after you go do the filing fee?
What do you mean?
There's a filing fee.
Do you have to do what before?
The APOC form is going to set it all up before you go pick the filing fee.
There's two different things. You gotta file with the state. The Division of Elections.
Yeah, there's no
That's the
filing fee
filing
for
fee.
APOC.
And your
Oh,
filing fee cannot come out of your campaign budget. Your filing fee has to be out of your pocket.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, there's no.
But that's separate from APOC.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Division of Elections is
Yeah.
I
different
just
than
wanted to get that clear. in my mind.
There's no filing fee with it.
with APOC. Yeah.
Hey, folks,
That's right.
going forward for all of our presenters, we built in time for question and answer periods.
Okay.
But we want to make sure that they.
I'm okay that there, I don't have a lot, so I'm okay with the
So
message.
on all of our presentations, please wait for the question and answer session before you jump into the information to get out. I've got people on.
Yeah, I'm almost at the end of it anyway. So yeah, once you're on your reports where you're actually filing your reports, like I said, there's a step-by-step how to do that. And the only way you're gonna learn is if you do it. If you spend the time, I will give you this advice. You shouldn't, if you can, don't wait until the very end of when you have a reporting period to like try to do your report. It's so much easier if you have a fundraiser, come home after the fundraiser, tired ass, either that night or the next morning, put all your stuff in the report. You can start your report and continually go back to it. That's the way to do it, because you're gonna remember stuff at that happened at that fundraiser before, you know, that you might not remember a month from then. So it's easier if you just, as soon as you get the money, as soon as somebody sends you a check, whatever, just put it, just go in there real quick, put it in there, save your thing, save your report, and then that way when it's time to actually do it, you might have to put 2 or 3 things in, look over all your stuff and just boom, and do it. So,
And also you might point out, you have to get all the information at the fundraiser, at the time we get the money, plus their phone number and their email, which is not information you give to APOC. But if you have that phone number and you say, oh, you know what, I can't read this, or they fill it out themselves.
Yeah.
I can't read this, or you give me your post office box, or you didn't give
Or-
me your mailing address.
or you get home and there's a donation envelope, because you put stuff in donation envelope, there's $200 cash in a donation envelope, you're like, holy crap. You know, you have to get a hold of them and say, I'm sorry, I'm only allowed to take $100. Can you write me a check for the other? Don't say, you know, make sure you get that rest of that money back. But you can only, you know, I mean, and that happens because you're busy at your fundraiser trying to connect with those people and get more money. And so they just put things in you know, in your donation envelope, and you don't know about it till you get home. Or they don't put their employer on there or things like that. All that stuff you have to know. So yeah, it's all the information. And when I ran, I took photocopies of everything. I took photocopies of all the checks. I took photocopies of the cash. I'm not kidding, because that's how anal I am about money. I took photocopies of everything. I'm like, okay, I can trace every single thing that came into me. So, because I'm just crazy. So the last thing is just, you have to report everything. I cannot stress that enough. Print off everything. Ask for help, whether it be through us, through the party, if you need help. APOC, you know, they're so accessible, and even with the Rona, I was still calling them all the time and talking to them and doing all that stuff. And that's it.
Which do you do first? Go to the state and pay the filing fee, or do the income? That's what I was trying to figure out.
The state.
It's the same exact time, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, most people go down and file to run first, and then you immediately get on to APOC, and you have to do, I think it's, I forgot to write that down, but I think they want you to do it right then. As soon as you file for office, they want that financial disclosure.
Yeah.
But I think you have like 5 days, I'm not sure.
You can do the financial disclosure first.
Yeah, you can do either one of them first.
Collect money at 18 months for the election.
Yeah.
And you can do all that stuff ahead of time and not file until May 31st. Or whatever.
I didn't know, I thought you had to file first and then you were allowed to get money. Yeah, see, I didn't know that.
because when you file, they say, did you do this? Did you do this? They want to know the financial disclosure is on file, they want to know all that is already there.
Yeah, I filed first before I touched
Well,
anything.
because, yeah, but it's gotta be all done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So regarding in-kind donations, I'm specifically curious because, I own a small marketing business and I'd like to help candidates. But I know that anytime you have a gap between, the thing is that if I'm essentially charging less than what I would charge a
You can't
typical
do that.
customer, that would be considered in-kind, correct?
No, you're not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
You have to, if you charge Joe Blow $500 for a website, then you have to charge me $500 for a website. If Kara wants to throw me a fundraiser and she brings, $300 worth of food, it has to be, she may have baked half of it or whatever, but it's still $300 worth of food. So you can't change the amount. You can get in a lot of trouble for that because they're going to know if you have this big, huge media blitz with all this stuff and it's thousands of dollars worth of advertising, then the guy goes, yeah, it was $200. They're going to call you on it.
So the question is though, how do people volunteer to do any design work then?
They just do.
You
just
do it free, but then they have to report it.
Yeah, we have to report it.
Yeah, the thing is that that's nothing. $500 is, 4 hours of work for me.
Well,
So that's what I'm trying to figure out because I'd like to support people. But so then do I, I'm just trying to figure out what the best way to approach that would be. Because I don't know how a volunteer could do any marketing work and be on $500.
But looking at the form of political action, possibly, and then it would be your own business and you're advocating, you're not directly supporting anybody, then you can put as much time as you want into it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No worries. I'm just trying to figure that out. Like I said, I have a hard time believing that a volunteer is doing less than $500 of marketing work if they're doing any at all.
Yeah, you can do it through a PAC, but you can't coordinate.
Are you talking about like volunteer? You're talking about services.
Because,
So
well, that's the thing, is that if I'm providing services for free, that is essentially, volunteering and providing services at no cost are essentially the same. So what I'm asking is that how do campaigns manage having volunteer designers, considering the fact that that is an actual opportunity cost, that person does it for a living, right? If I didn't do it for a living, it would probably be a problem, correct? Or what's?
no, it's as long as it's a service, like if somebody's gonna come out, like my mom has stuffed tens of thousands of letters for me, but I didn't have to write that down as an in-kind donation because it's not a service. The guy that did my website, he charges $500 for websites. So there was another guy that charged $500 to add stuff to my website. And those were, so if you normally charge, if that's only 4 hours worth of your time and that's the limit, then that's all you can do.
Okay, that makes sense. I
can't-
was only asking because, just even based off the last presentation, she mentioned suggesting finding a volunteer designer.
Mhm.
I don't know how that would be possible considering the laws. That's what I'm asking.
You can design all you want for
Yeah.
free.
That's the thing. How can I design all I want for free? Because
yeah,
that's a service.
How do
if
the
you're a
candidates?
volunteer on a campaign,
Yeah.
if you're on a campaign team.
Okay, so that's the thing. I have no problem with volunteering.
Well,
on a
then-
campaign.
Yeah, but
You as a
listen,
volunteer can volunteer and provide graphics. If your business wants to host their website, that's a service.
that's a service.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
You can spend all the time you want on your personal computer designing things for somebody as a volunteer.
Yeah.
But if you incorporate your business into it, now it's a service.
It's still hard. The IRS doesn't see a difference between me and my business, so I just have a.
Yeah.
But that's, yeah, I'll be looking into it further. on my own.
Owns the business.
But volunteer hours are volunteer.
Hours.
Yeah,
And that you can keep track of your volunteer hours. And you can, the campaign, the candidate can give you a gift at the end if there's any money left, like a gift. But at the end of the campaign, but it's not tax for tax, just for tax. We don't get paid for those hours.
yeah, because
If
the
you're a
reason,
volunteer, you don't get paid.
I'm only beating this up and asking about it because essentially I would love to offer my services at virtually no cost, to anybody who wants it. Outside of that, when it comes to actually, hosting services and whatnot, I'm already cheap. But the thing is, I'm just trying to figure out a way to, be able
You can
to.
volunteer for help us with the government.
It would, I would be curious too if it's design work and it's art, or if it's just writing or
Well, so
graphics
the
and
non-
speech. I mean, you could say, I mean, if you print it on a piece of paper and you're selling a poster, then it's, you know, that you probably have to count that material, and ink is in kind donation, but if it's, you know, I can go up and talk about how I want Cean Stevens would run for Senate. If I draw a poster on a piece of cardboard and put it in my window.
Yeah, we had lots, when I ran for Senate, I had tons of people that just sent me stuff.
Yeah.
They sent me memes, they sent me graphics, they sent me all kinds of stuff, and they don't do that as a business.
Yep.
They, you know, so I could get as much of that and use as much of that as I wanted. I had people that were helping me with, you know, videos and editing and all kinds of stuff, because they did it 20 years ago or whatever, you know, and I mean, honestly, you don't turn any of that down.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's just the business thing that
Well, the thing is, if I didn't do it for the purpose of business, it probably would be an issue. I just be a person with talent. That's why I'm trying to differentiate, because essentially, anytime I'm doing it, it's, you know, it's a service that I can provide.
You
Otherwise,
probably need to have a phone call with APOC person.
yeah.
if you wanted to count it off on your taxes or
Well,
something.
I think I have a solution. It's kind of what we do at my work for Alaska Public Media is we offer the same pricing for everybody.
Mhm.
And so what I'll just offer a package that essentially costs them and not market it. You know, I mean, to be frank.
Yeah,
And
well,
everybody
yeah.
has the same availability if they approach me.
Yeah.
So.
So, if I could just chime in real quick, for lots of candidates, I did videos for them, basically for advertising for social media. And like, I called up Michael Dukes, and I'm like, Michael, what is the going rate for something like that? And he said, X amount of dollars. So what Cean did, for example, in her campaign, when we used it, is just called it that value of an in-kind donation done. You know?
Yeah, you don't have to go, you don't have to, he spent this many hours doing this graphic thing and he did this and this. You just have to, you know, list it and the amount, and that's, yeah.
Cool, thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take much time. I just
No,
wanted
it's
to
fine.
clarify that because I was very curious about it.
Any other questions?
Any hands up from our
She's got
virtual
it. Go
attendees?
ahead.
So with the filling out, like when you get a donation, what information do they need from the person that you, like, do they need their physical address when you put it in there? So what? if you-
Anything over
what if you
$100.
live- What if you live in a borough where you have no physical addresses?
you can put a mailing address.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was all I needed.
Yeah, you have to have if it's over $100, you have to have their address, their employer, their occupation, and their information. So they don't want they don't need the phone number and they don't need the email address, but you need that.
Yes.
But you should do it no matter what. Because if they do 25, and then they do 25 again.
And then they
Yeah.
do it again, it comes
And
up to.
it adds up, and I think it's something.
No, it wasn't. Well, unless the group is different, but the candidate might have gone down, but the group's not. The group's still over 100. Go ahead.
What obligation do you have to check that information when someone turns in, you know, an envelope and they don't list their employer, or they just put, you know, three, you know, an acronym, someone's AIH, you know, or they have a typo in that. Do you have any obligation to verify any of the information on there necessarily?
I never did. If they're telling me they're a pilot for, you know, Revere or something, and all there is a dishwasher, I don't give a shit. Because they gave me.
So, you know, I think that's.
Yeah, you just have to have
We're gonna have
information
to
in
cut questions, and
there.
you're gonna have to do it in the discussion period, guys, because we're at our time crunch and we gotta get on to the next presenter. You did, you nailed it.
Can I
So thank you, Cean.